Jesus Christ came and interceded on your behalf. So,
do you see where this originates from what we see today as tribal thinking?
no.
That the whole group is responsible for what one person did. That somehow we are, quote unquote, born into sin. So we are automatically guilty for something that we could not have possibly been involved with. That's classic tribal thinking.
No, it's not.
And there's still cultures, for example, in Iraq. That's one of the reasons they have such horrible sectarian violence, is because if one person from the Sunni group commits a violent act against the Shiites hold all of the Sunnis responsible. That is, for millennia, that's why violence has been so bad on the earth, is because of that very type of tribal thinking.
I would say atheistic communism was the same thing. With no religion, when we were going to apply atheism, materialistic atheism to society, it ended up with the most horrible philosophy that's ever been put on the earth, and we're still reaping the horrors of it. Your thinking has been tried twice, and it's been absolute disaster for mankind.
Well, the problem with the communists, and I'm surprised we haven't mentioned Hitler. He comes up in a conversation.
Well, you have that.
I have, yeah.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is it's based on atheism.
Well,
The French Revolution was based on atheism.
That's actually not true.
Communism, by definition,
Communists forbade religions because they didn't want a competitor to their
that's
ideology.
because they were atheistic.
The problem wasn't that they didn't believe in a higher power. The problem was that they were promoting a utopian ideology. The problem is, with any utopian ideology, that any competitor to that is viewed as an impediment to reaching that utopia. I'll bring up Hitler. It was exactly the same thing. The brown shirts and the Nazis were wiping out the Jews because they scapegoated them. They saw them as an impediment to their perfect Aryan race. The communists saw believers as an impediment to their perfect Marxist utopia.
And is there anything wrong with that?
Absolutely.
Why?
That's exactly what religion does.
Yeah,
What
right.
more utopian ideology than heaven itself?
But there is the atheistic utopia. They were going
It
to
has
bring it
nothing to-
upon earth. Yes, it is.
The problem in communist Russia had nothing to do with too much reason. All right. The problem was a utopian ideology, and they were absolutely wrong about that. There's no question about that.
But why
Atheism
would
is a
Wait.
theism. A meaning
But
not
you're saying they're wrong. But
theist.
How?
It's not
wrong,
an- it's
wrong
not a
on
rule.
what? They controlled Russia. They controlled Russia. You know, the French controlled the French Revolution. They controlled France. So what they were doing, what was wrong? Within Russia, with atheism at the helm, what was wrong?
Atheism was-
You're appealing to a higher standard.
No, I'm appealing
Yes, you
to the
are.
standard of reason.
Well,
What was at the helm with communist Russia was Marxism. That was the ideology. They wanted to eliminate belief.
Was Marxism wrong?
Was Marxism right? It was a failed experiment, sure. It was wrong because
Because it failed.
it was wrong because it didn't take into account the necessity or the natural human greed in which capitalism taps into. So that's why capitalism has
Although-
beaten Marxism.
Well, we have to be careful there, because if I'm not mistaken, capitalism violates one of the 10 Commandments, and wasn't Jesus communist?
He was.
I don't know where you get that reasoning, but you seem to be appealing to a higher morality, but yet you say there is no, it's all relative to the society.
No,
So,
never said that.
well, if Hitler won World War II, and he annihilated all the Jews, and whatever other group, would he have been wrong?
Would he have been?
Yeah, not, the whole world is Nazi right now.
It's immoral.
Which aspect of that?
Immoral based on what?
Are you talking
It
about
does harm.
killing the Jews?
No, the whole thing, the Nazism won.
Yeah.
And he killed the Jews and the Slavics and whoever else
Right.
that was in there. And we're all now the whole world is Nazism. What Hitler did, would that be wrong?
Are you talking about killing the people
Yeah, the whole
specifically?
thing, the whole thing.
It's objectively wrong.
Why?
We can play that thought experiment. It's objectively wrong because it reduces human well-being.
Yeah.
But I think where you were going with this, you're trying to drill down into what ultimately would end up when it was called the Erythro dilemma. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not. It's a Greek philosopher that asked the question, is an act or is a commandment from God moral because it comes from God? Or does God command it because it's moral? And that's a dilemma that's never really been sufficiently answered. What you're implicitly doing is when you're saying there's a command from God, and I've heard the argument, you're going to say the command is inherently moral because that is part of God's nature. When you do that, I'll just point out, when you do that, what you're doing is applying an external standard of morality to God. At the same time, you're saying that God is the author of the standard. That's classic circular reasoning. You need a standard to start with, and that's why I said that's what morality is increasing well-being.
And our standard is
That's
Jesus Christ.
Actually, where I was going
Okay.
about the objective right and wrong, that you would say it's happened over time of secular reasoning and so on, where we know, regardless, that it's wrong to murder.